Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to each and everyone. I am Archer Timbang, and together with my group mates, we will be discussing um, what is community all about. Okay, so actually, ang community is maraming definition. Many scholars, authors, and even great philosophers have their own definitions of community. But then since mas hinahanap natin yung mas relevant, I I chose the definition given by Socrates. Okay, so but first let me define according to him kung ano nga ba ang sabi niya about sa community. Okay, so sabi niya, community is the combination of two Latin words. Una, ang salitang kam, that means together, and monis, na ang ibig sabihin naman ay serve. Okay, so kung pagtutugtungin natin, makakabuo tayo ng salitang serve together. And serve together is called community. Okay, so Socrates had said about the person who is independent of his fellow beings and is unable to live in community or society is either beast or God. Okay, so now let us proceed to the definition of community based on different authors. Okay, so before that pala, idadagdag ko lang yung sinabi ni Socrates. Sabi niya, tayong mga tao is like a trees who need roots. And therefore, we must have a soil to root ourselves in order to grow. Okay, so yun na nga, as we interact with the person in our community, nakakagawa tayo ng attachment to a particular locality. Men have never lived alone. Ito na yung sabi ko because, yes, to naman kasi, di ba, no man is an island. We need a hand and a support from other people. A basic requirement of existence has been the social bonds that unite each man to others, the closest being those of the family and close kin groups. So yun nga, our existence required social bonds with our family members or yung mga taong nasa ating community in order to in order to maintain close ties or ganon. But other wider social bonds, when we say social bonds, is it is engaging with different activities. And other wider social bonds have never been needed to link man to more extensive social arrangement. When we say social arrangement, it refers to yung arrangement ng family, religion, law, class, or economy in our society. Okay, so ngayon, let us proceed to the definition of community based on the different authors. So first, we have here Bogardus. Ang sabi niya, for him, ang community is a social group with some degree of we feeling and living in a given area. So dito, para sa kanya, ang community is where a group of people live together and there is a common interest, particularly in terms of emotions, ganun. So they have mutual understanding regarding emotion, ganun. Second, total organization of social life within a limited area. That's according to W. Ogburn. Okay, so dito naman, the total organization of social life Social life consists of various bonds that we form with others, such as it could be our family, friends, members of community, and even yung mga strangers or yung mga nakakasalamuhan natin in our community. And it involves spending time with our loved ones. Okay, so it is the smallest territorial group that can embrace all aspects of social lives. That's according to Davies. Kasi di ba sa society, sa community, despite of despite of your life status or kung ano man yung kultura meron ka or kung paano ka lumaki, in community we embrace or we accept that. Community is a collection of people who share a common territory and meet their basic physical and social needs. Okay, di ba nga, ang community, or people share common territory or share same place, and na-acquire or na-obtain natin yung ating basic needs or such as yung physical needs. Pag sinabi natin physical needs, it could be our daily essentials gaya ng shelter, foods, and etc. While sa social needs naman, ito yung affection, ito yung paghangarin natin, ito yung paghahanap natin ng affection, safety, and security na kung saan na-acquire lang natin through the process of interaction with one another. So, syempre, nangyayari to within our community. So, that's according to Alan Johnson. Okay, so number 5, according to Sussman, a community is, sabi niya, nag-e-exist lang ang community. Excuse me? Nag-e-exist lang ang community kapag yung interaction ng mga inhabitant, tama ba? Yung mga taong naninirahan sa community, paano ba? Nag-e-exist ang community kapag yung interaction ng bawat isa is may purpose, gaya ng na-provide or na-obtain yung needs ng bawat isa or yung group goals. And a limited geographical area is another feature. The features of social interaction, structural for the gratification of physical, social and physical needs, and limited geographical area are basic to the definitions of community. So, in community, as long as it doesn't matter kung gaano kalaki yung area ng community or kung gaano kaliit, as long as na-provide or na-sustain natin yung daily needs natin or yung na-obtain natin yung goals natin. So, we can consider it pa rin na community. So anyway, mamaya matatakot din ng ating next reporter yung sa type of community. Okay, so community is a number of families residing in relatively small area within which they have developed more or less complete socio-cultural definitions imbued with collective identifications and by means of they resolve problems arising from the sharing of an area. That's according to Sutton and Kolaha. Yes, kasi ang community naman talaga, it is mainly composed or it is, ang pangunahing naninirahan dyan is number of families, tayo mga tao, na kung saan, di ba, we share different culture and we resolve problems arising from our society. Okay, so lastly, community is a spatial or territorial unit. Oo nga, di ba? Kasi community is, sabi ko nga kanina, it is a space for all. It is where people share the same place in which social organization, in which people have a sense of identity and a feeling of belonging. Kasi di ba, as a tao or sa citizen or yung tayong mga naninirahan as a member of our society, of course we have a sense of identity. Dapat lang na meron tayong pagkakakilanlan since member tayo ng community or member tayo ng ating family or yes, ganon. And a feeling of belonging. And dapat alam natin or maramdaman natin na tayo ay bilong nga sa ating community. Okay, so here are the tables that okay, so ito naman yung table na kung sa it presents comparison and some summarization of the definitions of the community according to different authors. So yeah, as you can see, as according to Bogardus, sa kanya more on the mutual understanding or mutual understanding sa mutual understanding natin mga tao inside or within our community. Kay W. Og Berneman, ang sabi niya is, yun na nga, it is the total organization of social life within a limited area. So, di ba? Tapos, si Davies, according to him, yun, it is the smallest territorial group na kung saan we accept and embrace all aspect of social life. Tapos kay Alan Johnson, a collection of people who share common territory. Di ba? As you can see, parang although they differently define community, magkakarugtong and they are still connected pa rin. Okay, so yeah. Si Dodson, sabi niya, a community is a spatial or territorial unit of social organization in which people have sense of identity and a feeling of belonging. Kay Sussman, a community is, sabi niya, nag-exist lang kapag yung interaction between individual has the purpose of meeting individual needs and obtaining group goals. Okay, so now let us proceed to the definition of community, my own definition of community. Okay, so community is composed of diverse people with diverse culture. Diba, lalo pa ngayon, napapansin natin na as time went by, ang community is hindi lang umiikot sa iisang culture lamang. Kasi, diba, as time went by, marami na rin naninirahan sa isang komunidad na kung saan etong mga taong to is may kanya-kanyang culture or may kinagis ng magkakaibang culture, beliefs. So, yun. And a social system which organizes their activities. Community is therefore a group of people with something in common. So yun nga, as we can notice, ang community naman is, yung mga naninirahan sa community is, usually they have common interest. Kasi, di ba, ang having ano nga yung tawag dyan? Yung pagkakaroon ng something in common or yung mga common interest is parang ito yung nagiging way to have a better understanding as well as to have a better and maunlad na community. So, ayun. So far, yun lang naman for the definitions of community. And the next reporter will discuss types of community. Okay, so that's it.
Ayan. So kanina pinag-usapan natin yung patungkol sa definisyon ng community in the lens of different authors. So now, pag-uusapan naman natin yung iba't ibang klase ng community na mayroon tayo sa ating mundo. As you can see in the screen, we have 7 types of community. These are the formal communities, informal communities, urban communities, rural communities, global, sectoral, and the last one is social space communities. These communities are existing na hindi natin alam, at most of us ang alam lang natin na common type of community is urban, rural, and suburban. So now we will be exploring the different types of community. So let's start with the formal community. An informal community engage in joint activities and discussions. Ito yung mga community na kung saan ay nagtutulungan sila. They share information with each other and also nagtutulungan sila. They share information with each other. They support the needs of each other in a formal way. So, one example of the formal community is the religious community. We know that in religious community, lahat ng mga tao sa komunidad na yan, they share with each other, they care for each other, they teach each other, they educate, and help each other na tulungan silang mapunta sa isang tamang daan. That's why religious community is an example of a formal community. And also, the second example is the cooperative community. Dahil alam natin, in cooperative community, yan yung mga organizations na mga tao na kung saan ay meron silang business. They help each other to grow the business. They help each other to make the business rich and for the benefit and interest of their organization. The second one is the informal community. Itong informal community consists of personal relations. Ito naman yung mga organisasyon or di kaya komunidad ng mga tao na kung saan ay nagkakaroon sila ng relasyon based on their personal, social, and common interest, and also yung mga tao na nandoon sa community can be the source of their motivations. They can be source of their energies in which they need for their daily living. For example, is academic community. In academic community, we know that all of the people inside an academe has a one purpose. They are connected with each other. The reason of learning, imparting knowledge, educating the mind, and developing the potentials of the students in an academe. And the second one is recreational activity. We know also that in recreational activity, we try to develop our network. We develop our networks, and then by engaging in an activity kung saan we are having fun, and at the same time, nakaka-build tayo ng isang friendship sa mga tao na nandoon na hindi natin kilala. And aside from that, alam natin na lahat ng tao na nandito sa lugar na kung saan ay nangyayari itong kung saan ginagawa itong recreational activities, ay isa lang din ang interest ng mga tao dyan, kundi magsaya, mag-ehersisyo yung iba. That's why they can be considered as an informal community because they are linking to each other personally based on their personal interest. Third one is urban community. In urban community, Ito naman yung isang community na kung saan advanced in terms of technology, kung saan lahat ng mga teknolohiya doon ay advanced in technology. So example of this urban community is town or city. No, alam natin in town or city, makikita natin diyan yung iba't ibang teknolohiya na kung saan ay hindi natin makikita sa ibang parte ng ating mga lugar or ibang parte ng community. The fourth one is the rural community. In rural community, alam naman natin na ang rural community, ito yung nasa mga far-flung communities or the communities na kung saan they usually provide their own food for their subsistence. Ibig sabihin, kagaya nito, ang isang example ay farm, kung saan yung mga tao ay nagfa-farming, gumagawa sila, nagtatrabaho sila for their own food. They do not rely on the products that is exported sa kanilang community, kundi sila mismo yung gumagawa ng kanilang mga pagkain. And also the fisher folk, they are also considered as a part of a rural community. Dahil alam natin na yung mga fisher folk, yung mga pinapangisdaan ay nasa malayong kabihasnan or malayong lugar na kung saan ay nahihirapan sila or they have a very limited connection to the city or to the town. The fifth one is global community. Alam natin that in global community, this is a community that is participated by the people coming from different countries internationally. It is not sold in just one country, but also on the other countries. And the example is the United Nations Assembly. Alam natin that in the United Nations, it is composed of different representatives coming from different countries all over the world. So this United Nation can be considered as an example of global community. The sixth one is the sectoral community. In sectoral community, these are the communities of the volunteers or the non-profit organizations na kung saan they are doing something for the benefit of a sector that is underprivileged. So for example, are the non-profit or the non-government organizations kung saan they are being bond together, they are in an organization to help those people in a sector that is experiencing a tough or difficult situations, or in other terms, underprivileged sectors. The seventh one is the social spaces community. The social space community, this is based on the social space, wherein people are being connected despite of the geographical locations where they are, and then they are being connected by one medium, and this is the social media. And social media can be considered as a social spaces community because they are being connected with each other. Nakakapagbuo sila ng connections and sa pamamagitan ng social media, and on that connection they are able to sustain the needs, interests of one another. So here are the tables of the different types of community. In this table, it would help us to clearly understand and differentiate and distinguish the different types of community based on its definition and also the examples. So as you can see, informal communities, these are the people who engages, who collaborate, and help each other to grow, to be empowered, and to improve themselves. So, example is a religious community wherein people give each other knowledge, they support each other knowledge in order to attain the empowerment of those who are ignorant of their own religion. So they wanted to educate these people. Through their bond, they're able to empower and educate the other people. The second one is informal communities. These are the communities in which the people have common interest, have a emotional, they are the sources of an energy, of a motivations. And the example of this is the academic communities. You know, in academic communities, we know that people who are in the academe have common interest. First, the interest of the students, which is to learn, to empower themselves, to educate themselves, while the interest of the teachers is to empower and to educate the students. So that's the example of informal community. On the third is the urban communities, wherein this is a community wherein technology is advanced, and those technologies cannot be found in any other community. So the example of this is the town or city, where we can see different types, different kinds of a technology which we cannot see on the other community. On the fourth is the rural community, which are the communities on the far-flung, and because of their limited access or limited connection to the city, and then they tend to provide their own food instead of accessing those imported foods. So the example are the farmlands or the communities wherein their first resources or source of their income is through farming. The fifth one is the global community. These are the union of the nation states. It is being participated by the people coming from different countries. The example is the United Nations, kung saan we know that United Nations, there are a country representative ng bawat country. So we have 100 plus countries, and then the representative on this union also consists of 100 plus people. And the sixth one is sectoral community. These are the communities that is distinct from others. So ito yung mga community na iba sila sa ibang community, and at the same time, their community is also serving the interest of its sectors. Those who are experiencing a difficulty, and those who are in an underprivileged status of their lives. So these are the non-government organizations who are helping those people who are in a tough or in a challenging situations in order for them to overcome those situations. And then that's the sectoral community, no? Ito yung community ng mga tao na kung saan they're helping those people on the other sector. Ayun, naulit ko lang. So yun lang yung sinabi ko kanina. The seventh one is the social space community. These are the community that have a connection to each other despite of the geographical spaces, and then they are still able to sustain the needs and interests of others. So, an example is social media, like Facebook. In Facebook, you know, there are a lot of people out there. They're using social media. Some of them just to spread the vibes. Some of them just to spread some energies that would also be beneficial to others, that would be considered as a sustenance to the interest of those who are using technology or social media. Yeah. So I think that's the end of my report, which is the type of community. Again, the formal, informal, urban, rural, global, sectoral, and social spaces communities. Okay, the next one is the community inspect gen approach.
So this is the continuation of the report of Joni. So describe the patterns of community and speg approach: social, political, economic, culture, spiritual, education, and gender. So and community development, mostly depending on the coordination of different patterns. So that means that community development mostly depending on the participation of different patterns of community. So as to the community patterns, in terms of social, so social, there is a need of social interaction in order to gain common ideas, and these social patterns can often correspond with social development, and biological changes lead to community development. So, it is very important na meron tayong social interaction to in order to develop our community, the organization yung organization sa ating community is ma-develop through social interaction. So, political, the community patterns in terms of political aspect involves the participation of each community member that has been represented in gender form. So, in community, the political aspect in the community is it is very important na yung community member is parang nag kumbaga active sila in our community to develop, and the participation of participation of the community member. So in terms of economic, so in a community, it involves economic development in the community, whereas the condition of the natural resources and development pattern. So in the community, it is involves the economic because yung community is na dumidevelop din siya sa ating economic, which is our natural resources. The development of our natural resources. So, sa cultural naman is our shared beliefs, values, norms, and social practices that are stable over time and that lead to roughly similar behaviors across similar situation. So sabi nga ni Marcher, yung community is hindi lang iisang culture yung naninirahan doon. Then we have different culture in the community. So parang sa community is nagse-share sila ng parang through social interaction is parang nalalaman nila kung ano yung culture ng bawat isa. So in spiritual rituals with a group or in a spiritual community may offer self-discipline and a focus, as well as the heightened spiritual experience when the energy level generated compensate for one another. So in spiritual, in community is dapat is every person is in the community is meron silang self-discipline to especially sa social interaction. Dapat is may sa social interaction is meron tayong disiplina or respeto sa bawat isa to develop our community. So the next is education. Education is the community learning and development to promote learning and social development, work with individuals and group in their communities using range of formal and informal methods. So sa education is sa education is very important na meron tayong education into the community, kasi paano natin ma-develop yung community natin kung wala tayong learning, yun nga, education, and paano natin mapopromote yung community natin kung walang education. Yun nga. So the next is gender. Gender, both women and men as equal numbers in the community have the opportunity to participate in all kinds of social activities at will. So in community is hindi na pinipilit kung babae ka or lalaki so di ibig sabihin na babae ka is hindi ka na pwede mamuno sa community natin or sa mga activities is hindi ka kasali kasi we are free, we have a freedom to show our learning kasi pare-pareho din naman tayo, may mga ideas din tayo na kahit babae tayo or ano man is may idea din tayo na kung baga pwede nating ilabas. So that's all. Thank you.
The next topic is the common components of community that will be reported to us by Mrs. Mylene Joni.
My task here is to report the three common components of the community. We have shared physical space, social interaction, shared sense of identity. When we said physical space, it has defined boundaries. Physical space is important to our community because in every community has a physical asset such as gardens, parks, bike paths, housing, streets, playgrounds, and parking lots. It is important that community contain a variety of public space where people gather and meet. Then number 2 is social interaction. When is the social interaction naman is it is by interacting with one another and people design rules, institutions, and systems within which they seek to live. Social interaction is an exchange between two or more individuals and it is a building blocks of society. Last is shared sense of identity. In shared sense of identity, like for every one of us has a different identity. They might have a different interest, different religious or political beliefs, different life experience. Like for example, the Christian and Muslim. Christian and Muslim are sharing their religious culture, and the way they using their clothes. So, combining of these three elements of the community, a typical spatial community occupies shared physical space where the resident engage in social interaction and maintain a shared sense of identity.
So, let's proceed to the community-based organizations and people's organization. So, discuss the different community-based organizations and people's organizations, especially those with which we can relate it to the mandate of social work professions. So, when we say community-based organizations or the CBO are non-profit groups that work at a local level to improve life for residents. And the rules of community-based organization is to plan, implement, and monitor social and economic development programs and provide technical and financial help to the communities. So kapag sinabi natin community-based organization is pwedeng sumali ang lahat. So the example of community-based organization is the Sandung or the One Vision for Community, Bangsamoro Youth Project organization, and the Pilong Bayan. And the last one is the Child Peace Movement Council. And now,
let's talk about the people's organizations. So people's organizations are certified associations of citizens with demonstrated capacity to promote the public interest and with identifiable leadership, membership, and structure. So, this people organization is binubuo siya ng small population like farmers, fisher folk, slum dwellers, and others. The difference between people's organization and community-based organization is that kung sa CBO is pwede lahat sumali dun sa organization, dito naman sa people's organization is kung small farmers organization is makakasali lang dun is yung mga farmers. Example, Agriculture Stewardship Council.
Okay, so before that, I want to greet us in a peaceful afternoon to all of us. So our topic for this afternoon is what are the roles of communities in community development and social change? So communities are a community development term is widely used in English-speaking countries, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and others. And it has also become a popular term in some countries, Eastern Europe, especially in Hungary, Romania, and etc. So communities are very varied individual as each members. The rules of the community provides the members with a sense of belonging and purposes. So, ang role ng community is nagpo-provide siya ng members sa isang institution na kung saan may purposes. Hindi na mapapansin naman natin, di ba, lahat na kapag ang isang community is magulo, so wala tayong makakamit na freedom or wala tayong makakamit na peaceful sa ating communities, di ba? Communities' roles can be active in providing services, supportive, where the members support the activities of other communities. Or a mixture where the members share experience, resources, skills, and knowledge with each other. So, kapag sa isang community is, or ang role ng community to the community development is nagpo-provide siya ng services, yung mga organization na kung saan is nakakatulong sa mga taong mahihirap. So, community has content of people in a position of powers and significant numbers of people. Like for example, is yung people in position of power is yung mga mayor down to captain. The significant numbers of people is examples is yung mga mahihirap na tao at saka yung mga mayayaman na tao. Kapag ang mga tao na yon is nagtutulungan, posible na hindi makakamit yung development ng ating communities. Communities can be recreational. Yung sabi mo kanina, na ang communities maaaring maging recreational. Yung mga team building isa rin yan sa mga communities na kung saan is nagbibigay ng happiness sa mga tao at kung saan is nakakasalamuhan nila yung mga ibang tao at nakabuild sila ng magandang pakikisalamuha sa ibang tao. And provide a social role in enabling its members participate various activities or provide an educational role na kung saan is may natutunan sila doon sa recreational activities na yun na kanilang ginanap. And providing its members with knowledge, skills, and resources. A community code also a services provided in organization, a local community group, or any services that support people with higher support needs and fully fill any other role that is valued in society as well as other community that is a part of. So ang community is maraming role yan siya. So like for example sa local community group ay kapag ang mayor or ang peoples in a position of power is na nagpatayo ng organization is yung mga tao na yun, yung mga tao is maaari silang maki-cooperate sa kung sino yung namumuno sa kanilang community. Then next is So, community can be defined in several ways. A community is usually discussed in the terms of geographic location. Mapapansin naman natin is maraming iba't ibang uri ng community na kung saan is nagbibigay ng freedom or peace sa isang community na kung saan yung community development is nabibuild. Kumbaga, nakakamit natin yung kagandahan ng ating community kapag ang location or isang area is hindi magulo, yung environment is hindi magulo. So, number 2 is communities also come with history and climate as well as location, share culture, language, beliefs or interests can define a community. So, yung sabi ko sa inyo kanina, ang community is mayroon iba't ibang uri. So, like for example, kapag ang isang community is hindi lang yung isang tao or hindi lang isang culture yung naninirahan. Minsan, yung mga ibang community is maraming mga iba't ibang culture na naninirahan doon. Like for example, Ifugao, Blaan, Tiduray. So yun. So maaari natin i-respect yung mga iba't ibang uri ng culture na yon. So maaari tayong makabuild ng community development. So next is community development is a set approach undertaken by individuals, informal group, and organization. Next is geographical communities in their concept. Common sources and institutions create communities through the shared use of these facilities. So, it is common tie in a sense that people who share resources and institutions will have repeated and often regular interaction with each other. So, kapag ang isang community is maraming mga kumbaga yung magandang komunikasyon, so yung mga taong mahihirap, maganda rin yung pakikitungo nila sa mga namumuno sa kanilang komunidad. So, geographical community concept, yung place, like for in place is maganda, scales, distance, yung mga pakikitungo ng yung people in a position of powers, distribution, movements, region, change, process, spatial association, and sustainability. Like for example, include in local government areas where there are shared community centers, local amenities and services, and relief goods. Kapag isang community is ganun, so yung mga tao is maganda yung pakikitungo nila sa isang komunidad. So there's a tendency na makakamit nila yung tinatawag na community development. So, the concept of community development is it's a process where people come together to action and what's important to them. Each heart community development is rooted in belief that all people should have access to health well-being, wealth, justice, and opportunity. So, nakikita niyo yan dyan yung at each heart. Kapag ang isang community is nagtutulungan, so makakamit natin yung kagandahan ng ating community. So yun yung concept ng community development. Yung kapag nagtutulungan yung mga mamamayan, so there's a tendency na makakamit nila yung kagandahan ng ating community. At saka yung freedom, yung peace is makakamit natin. Next week. Community development defined in a one British government publication as follows: active participation and active participation is possible on the initiative of the community, but if the initiative is not forthcoming spontaneously by the use of techniques for arousing and stimulating it in order to achieve its active and enthusiastic response to the movements. So, according to the British government publication, ang community development is kapag nagtutulungan ang isang community So maaring makakamit or yung kapag ginagamit natin yung ating initiative na yung kusang loob natin ginagamit ang ating initiative, so makakamit natin yung community development. But ang ating initiative kapag hindi natin kusang loob na ginagamit sa mga paraan na kung paano natin makakamit yung community development sa ating komunidad, so there's a tendency na walang community development na mangyayari sa ating community. So the concept of community development impaired in a period of colonization includes three main elements. So first, here is community participation. So when we say community participation is a process by which a community mobilizes its resource initiates and takes responsibilities for its own development activities and share in decision making for and implementation of all other development programs for overall improvement of its health status. Kapag ang isang community is kusang loob na tumutulong sa anumang organisasyon or anumang service sa kanilang community, so maaaring makamit nila yung community development. So next is organization. Wait lang. May aim pala yung community participation. So the community develops self-reliance. So yun yung sabi ko sa inyo kanina. The community development critical awareness and community develops problem-solving skills. So next is community organization. So dito sa community organization is include parent-teacher organization, sport club, church groups, Black or Neighborhood Association, or yung tinatawag na 4-H Club, and many others. So kapag ang isang community is nagkandak ng iba't ibang uri ng organization, so yung mga kabataan at saka yung mga matatanda is maaaring mag-participate. So there's a tendency na makakamit nila yung community development sa kanilang community or sa kanilang lugar. So next is community services or community works. So halimbawa nito is kapag mayroon dito dalawa na example, collect things for your community. So when we say collect things for your community, if you look around your community, you will probably found at least in a few places that concept donation like food, pantries, families, shelters, and school. Kapag napapansin natin sa ating community is hindi kumbaga yung mga kabataan is wala sila masyadong nagagamit. So tayong mga social work or tayong mga kabataan ngayon in the future social work, kapag tayo ay registered social work na, so maaari tayong gagawa ng paraan para tayo ay makakatulong sa ating mga kapwa Pilipino. Next is teach things to your community. Help kids with their homework, teach others classmates safe, social media practice, give free music lesson, coach a youth sport team, educate beach girls about and sustainability and other skills to help the individuals. So yun yung community services or community work na maaaring ma-implement or makakatulong sa mga tao sa isang community. When we listen respectfully to others who have different opinions and life experiences than our own, we take the first step in listening. We accept that there are myriad perspectives and points of view in most issues of concern. If we truly want to be participant in real change, we cannot stop at acceptance, but we must have conversation that push and pull, that asks us to give and take. And if we are willing to do that, we can find those points of agreement and come together on them. We need consider those points that define our values, but find ways to work together toward positive change that reflect our shared values. It is the art or principle compromise that has the power to create a more lasting change. So, kapag ang isang community is nagtutulungan, so yung pag-accept sa mga mahirap na tao is maaring makamit yung kanilang mga pangangailangan or mabago yung kanilang pangangailangan sa buhay. Next is kapag sinabi nating collective behavior, yung pag-uugali ng isang tao sa kanyang komunidad. Kung mabait kung ang isang tao sa komunidad is hindi magulo, so yung social change is makakamit natin. Yung pagbabago ng ating komunidad is makakamit natin. And social movements. Okay. So, causes of social change. There are numerous and varied causes of social change. Four common causes as recognized by social scientists are technology. First is social institution, population, and the environment. All four these areas, all four of these areas can impact how society changes. First here is change to technology. So some would say that improving technology has made our life easier. Okay, so lahat naman tayo ngayon is nakahawak sa ating mga gadget. Di ba kapag wala tayong gadget, hindi tayo mabubuhay. So kapag marami tayong gadget, maaring ang ating buhay is masaya. Kapag wala tayong gadget is malungkot tayo. Imagine what your day would be like without the internet or the automobile electricity. In the world is flat. According kay Thomas Freedom 2005. Kapag wala daw internet or wala daw gadget sa mundo or hindi daw nabuo or hindi daw na-invent yung gadget, ang mundo is flat. Kumbaga is wala masyadong laman. Hindi na literal na wala masyadong laman. Kumbaga boring masyado, di ba? So, millions of people today walk around with their heads titled toward a small devices held in their hands. So yun yung sabi ko sa inyo kanina. Sa mga kabataan ngayon, kahit naglalakad, may mga gadget na, nakikipag-communicate na sa kanilang mga mahal sa buhay, sa kanilang bahay. Then perhaps you are reading this textbook and phone or tablet. So kapag ngayon is uso na masyado yung gadget sa online class. So dito na natin sinisave yung ating files sa laptop or sa phone natin. So binabasa lang natin yung mga module natin. People develop societies now tech, communication technology, and granted. So yun yung change to technology. Next is social institution. Each change in a single social institution leads to change in a social institution. For example, the industrialization of society mean that there was no longer any large families to produce enough manual labor or run a farm. Then further new job opportunities. So like for example, kapag sa isang community, maraming mga pamilyang walang farmer or walang farm. So ang maaring gawin ng isang community or yung namumuno sa isang komunidad is maari silang mag-build ng iba't ibang uri ng opportunity para lang makagawa sila ng paraan para sa kanilang pamumuhay. So, it has also informed that way we educate our children. So, yun yung paraan para mapag-aral yung mga kabataan. Original schools were set up in a community or agricultural calendar. So, teaching models are largely based on preparing students for industrial job. So, yun yung paraan para makamit kapag ang isang community or pamilya ay mahihirap. So, ang paraan para malampasan nila yung kahirapan na yun is to educate their children. Then next is population. Population composed in a changing the birth level of society. Births increasing in a nation and decrease in another. So, ang pinakamahalaga dito is yung family planning na tinatawag. Kasi kapag ang ating yung family natin is hindi na makontrol, so yung population is yung social change ba na parang hindi makakamit yung social change na tinatawag. Kapag ang isang pamilya naman is ang tawag diyan, labas ng kanilang anak. So, maaring maapektuhan yung kanilang pamumuhay sa buhay. Parang hindi na nila kayang buhayin yung kanilang anak. Then yung social change ay hindi na nila makakamit. Next is the environment. Turning the human ecology, we know that individuals and environment affect each other. So when we say human ecology is the interaction of individuals to the environment. Okay, so kapag ang tao ay sumira ng di ba napag-aral naman natin ito sa eco, kapag ang isang tao is sinira yung kalikasan, so maaaring magkaroon ng natural disasters. So maaaring maapektuhan yung mga tao. Yung environment sa yung tao is parang anong yung tawag, changing lang sila. Kapag ang tao ay sinira yung kalikasan, sila rin yung maapektuhan. So parang ganun yung nagagawa ng tao at saka environment. So next is, okay. So next is, what are the rules of communities in attaining the above mentioned concept? Okay, so first here is community leadership. Community leadership, examples sa mga community social workers. So they possess the abilities like networking or communicating with others, seeking resources, parang yung naghahanap ng mga necessary na mga resources to provide an applicable resources within a certain community and spot local talents for project benefit. Community leaders can aid process of voicing expectation, learning, and networking in MIKAY buildings. So, yung community leaders is parang sila yung nagpapahayag, kumbaga sila yung tumatawag ng parang sila yung nagbibigay ng magandang impluwensya para sa mga tao or para sa ating mga kabataan sa ngayon. Women's empowerment, gender equality, sustainable development, economic growth, political development, good governance, and social development. So, isa sa mga role ng communities in attaining the above mentioned concept is to avoid the gender stereotyping, right? So, yun yung isa sa mga roles ng community to attain the goals, to develop the community development. The next is community development is an important because it's human right, inclusion, social justice, self-determination, and collective action according to Kenny 2012. So that's our topic for this afternoon.
EcoMap. An EcoMap is a diagram often used by social workers or nurses showing the social and personal relationship of an individual with his or her environment. EcoMap were developed in 1975 by Dr. Anne Hartman, who is credited with creating the genogram. EcoMap is an assessment, planning, and interventive tool, a simple paper and pen information that presents individual or family. The major symptoms types as well as the of the individuals or family relationship with these various systems. Ang EcoMap or ecological map ay kadalasang ginagamit ng mga social workers at mga nurses upang pag-aralan ang social at personal relationship ng kanilang mga clients. Sa tulong ng ecological map or EcoMap, nalalaman nila yung mga contributing factors sa mga client nila, either family or personal factors. At sa EcoMap, nalalaman nila kung ano yung mga kailangan nilang gawing assessment or interventive tool na maaaring makatulong sa mga client nila.
So as you can see on the screen, this is the example of EcoMap. To create an EcoMap, the first step is draw the client in the large circle in the middle. And the next, uh, draw a smaller circles around the client, represent each of the people, groups, institutions, and entities with which the client is in relationship. And the third is uh, determining the connections of uh, connection of each uh, of connection of the any written in around the client. So the the border one is the strong connection, and yung the thick is represent the the source of energy of the client, and yung the yung may separate line naman is yan yung may weak connection sa client.
What are the use of EcoMap in social work profession? An EcoMap is visual tool that many social workers use with families and individuals as a participatory way to involve client in describing and organizing the various elements impacting their lives. The EcoMap were essentially diagram that place with client or client system at the center and visually display the key social and personal relationship the client has with the external environment. EcoMap visualize the person and environment perspective of the social work profession and help clients to understand the various system which they interact in their current lives, giving a snapshot of the client in their dynamic ecological system. Ginagamit o malaki ang tulong or ang ginagampan ng tulong ng EcoMap or ecological map sa mga social worker sapagkat sa tulong ng social worker or sa tulong ng ecological map, mas napapadali nilang matrack ang mga factors na nagbibigay ng impact sa mga buhay ng kanilang mga clients. Usually, it gives highlight in different areas and connections in person's life and the flow of energy to and from people. The EcoMap is useful in social work profession in exploring relationship, involvement, and activities in such realm of life as family, employment, friends, and religious affiliation in school.
Social workers commonly use an EcoMap template to keep track and comprehensively analyze the social and personal relationships between a person or a family and their external. It also useful in the evaluation of different relationships and the quality of this relationship. So, social workers use EcoMap to represent the relationship between a person and other people or systems such as work, religion, and school. And it is also identifies the strength of relationship with his or her environment. Here are the other areas that you may explore using an EcoMap. How do the members of the family feel about their environment? Can the family depend on professional agencies or people they know for support? What kind of support do they get? It is enough to meet all their needs. Is there any duplication of the services provided to them? If so, are they able to communicate about it? Does the family participate in other activities of work or school? Do any of the family members belong to groups? Does the family have any needs that aren't getting address does the family have access to the support they need within their community? So those are the question you may use to create an eco map. That's all.
That's the end of our report. And thank you so much again. Our topic was all about community. Maraming salamat po.